Okay, welcome everybody. I am absolutely so excited for you guys to hear from tonight's guest, Ambassador Diamond Jocelyn Yates. Her story is absolutely so incredible. I know so many of you guys have followed her and have watched a lot of her trainings. I know when I got started 3 years ago, I watched so much of Jocelyn's YouTube. And I remember just like so many tips that she was sharing on her YouTube just sounded so simple to me. And I was like, okay, she can do this from her college dorm room, so can I. And so I'm just so excited for you guys to hear from her tonight because she just absolutely has golden things to share. And I just love so much the things that she's overcome in this business and just what she has to bring to the table from her knowledge and her wisdom she's gained throughout her journey. So Jocelyn, if you're able to go ahead and unmute yourself, if you want to start and just introduce yourself and tell everyone your story.
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me, Brittany. I'm so excited to be here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. So it's crazy. I found this business 6.5 years ago. It was January of 2013 at a bridal expo. I was modeling wedding dresses, wasn't engaged, anything like that. But in between the fashion shows that we had, I was looking through all of the booths, entering everything that was free because as a broke college student, like I couldn't afford all the cool stuff. And so I specifically remember the It Works booth. At the time, I had no clue what it was. Like it was the first time I had ever seen the company or anything. But I remember it was on a corner. And so they had one person on one side of the corner and one person on the other. And so I actually entered to win the drawing that they had twice because I talked to two different people depending on which way I went. And so about a week later, I get a phone call. And I have always been somebody that has been shy. Like in high school, when it came to the girls' choice dances, those were my biggest fear because I never had a group of girls that I felt like I could just fit in with and always I never had a group of girls that I always hung out with and always had those guaranteed groups. So I had to find people. It was so awkward. Like I hated it. That was I was okay with being alone. And so what ended up happening was I was so shy. Like I usually never answer my phone. Like I have that phone anxiety where I'm like, if I don't know who it is, like I don't want to answer. I don't like talking on the phone. And so I remember I was sitting in the bank parking lot. No idea why, but I actually answered the phone. It was an unknown number, and it was a lady named Andrea, and she's like, hey, you won second place from our drawing from this expo. You won $5 off a wrap. So she actually offered me to try the wrap for $20 instead of $25. And so I was like, wait, what does it do? And so she was telling me what it did. And basically what I heard was you put this thing on and it's going to make you skinnier. And so I was like, okay. I was already size 4. I did not need it, but I wanted it. Anything that was going to help me get rid of fat, make me look better, I wanted to try. So I ended up trying that first wrap. And I remember it was so funny because I remember taking the before and after pictures, measuring in 3 different spots, and 45 minutes later, I was the exact same. The pictures were barely different. And I was kind of like, well, great. But they were slightly better. And so I was like, okay, there's some hope. And she said, just keep drinking water for the next 3 days and you'll keep getting better results. I was like, okay, I'll do that and we'll see what happens. And 3 days later, I was blown away at the results that I had. Because we don't talk about inch loss, I always tell people that I went from feeling like I had to suck in to look good in a tight dress to not having to suck in anymore. It made a huge difference for me, just one. And I was immediately sold. I wanted more. And so I just kept buying more from her. She kept offering them to me for $20. So I was like, okay, I didn't know they were 25. I just thought they were 20. So a couple weeks go by and she's like, hey, I'm actually having a party. If you bring 4 people with you, I'll give you a wrap for free. And of course I was obsessed with them. So I was like, heck yeah. So she had made a Facebook event for the party. But it was an actual in-person party. And that same night just so happened to be our family pictures night. And so after we took pictures, we all went to dinner and I drove my siblings home, my sisters and my mom home. And we just happened to go to the party on the way there and they knew what they did. And so between myself buying a couple my mom, my sister, my two sisters-in-law, and I think I had one friend with me. We probably made her about $300 in cash that night. And it was after this party that she finally was like, okay, why don't you just sign up to make some money off of your family and friends instead of making me all this money? She never offered me to become a customer, but if she didn't say that, I never would have joined. So it's crazy looking back on my story because like I had no clue what network marketing was, but I was almost joining another one at the time. I had a friend at the time, she was in a company that sold like computer bundles or software of, I don't even know. I didn't really understand the products, and it was like $600 to join this company. But I remember her showing me that income chart, and I was like, oh my gosh, like if I could make a bunch of money, that'd be really cool. Had no clue what I was doing, obviously, but I had been saving up for that. And as a broke college student, like at that point, I think I only had about $300 saved, just putting $50 to $100 here and there from my paychecks. And so I remember when she offered me the business, I had already saved up $300. So I was like, well, yeah, let me just get this booster kit too, because I had the money. And so I ended up joining, and just from cash sales from all of the products that I had on hand, loyal customers and retail customers, in my first month and a half, I made over $800. And my first paycheck though was only $44. I joined in the middle of March. So I got over $400 by the end of the month and made about $44 in commissions. The next month, the commissions was like $500. I think it was like $497 plus then all the cash that I had. So like, I just felt like a baller at that point. I was like, cool, like I'm making all this residual income. I don't have to work. They say you do the work one time and you get paid over and over and over and over again, because that's what residual is. And so I stopped doing the business, and I just like didn't really put any work into it. Plus it was summer. Plus I'm a college student and I'm trying to like date and things. And I actually met my husband that summer. So at least we had some good stuff going on. But so gradually that commission, because half of it was retail customers, and then I didn't follow up with my loyal customers, it gradually dropped to about $50. And I loved the products. Like I religiously ordered, I think like 2 boxes of wraps a month, plus like the greens. Back then we only had orange greens and they were disgusting, but we drank them every day. And I just remember like one day my mom, because I was living at home, going to school, trying to save money. I had to pay for my tuition out of pocket. I missed my scholarship. And so I was super broke living at home. And I remember my mom looks at me one day, she's like, why are you still doing that business? You're not making any money. And I just wanted to prove her wrong. You know what I mean? Like when you have somebody that just like doesn't believe in you in that sense, you're just like, oh, come on, like I've got to prove her wrong. And so that's kind of like the attitude I had. And a couple things really started changing and shifting for me at this time. And so often I just kept hearing, when you show up, you go up. So I just decided I'm going to show up to everything that I can. Back then, nobody worked their business through social media. We had a team page on Facebook, but like people really didn't work the business on social media. It was unheard of. And so the only way I knew how was to do expos with my upline, to do parties, to go to events. Like, and I'm shy, like it was not fun for me. And so I remember we would drive 2.5 hours down to Vegas to go to a 1-team-1 mission, or we call them try-its or share-its now. But, and I remember we would drive 2.5 hours to go down to a training, because we didn't have Zooms. We had to go to somebody's living room to get trained. And so I just remember going to a training, and my enroller, Andrea, her enroller is Stephanie Dunn. And so Stephanie was there. No clue what she told us that night, but I remember just believing like, okay, she thinks I can do this. So why don't I just shoot for the steps to success and see what happens? Because she was preaching and saying like, literally every single time you do the steps to success, you make $500. And I remember I couldn't send distributors to save my life. Like I was like, that's too hard. Like I can't do the steps to success. Like I'll just try to get the customer bonus, because I can't. Distributors aren't what I'm good at. And so, but I remember leaving that training thinking, okay, I'm just going to shoot for this and see what I can do. And I think that's where everything started to change for me. It's crazy what happens, because, you know, you might even be looking at this Margaritaville trip thinking like, oh my gosh, like there's no way I could be a top 300 point earner. And you're not even trying, like you're shooting yourself in the foot. And that's exactly what I was doing 6 years ago. I was shooting myself in the foot, not even trying to do the steps to success because I thought it was too hard. You've got to just say, you know what, I'm just going to shoot for it and see what happens. If I don't make it, so what? I'm growing my business. I'm making money. I'm providing something for my family. And that's what's important. So what ended up happening for me, besides that, is I also ended up listening to a conference call because we didn't have trainings. It was a conference call on how to work the business through Instagram from a girl that was doing her steps to success once a week on Instagram. And so I remember getting on that, learning it, and it was hard. Like it probably took me a month and a half before I ever signed a customer or distributor from Instagram. It took me time to build up. But once I did, all of a sudden from doing that, learning Instagram, trying different things, but then also doing what I knew worked, which was expos, generating those leads, following up, doing parties with my upline, I did my steps to success and I made over $500 when I did the steps to success the first time. And I had this aha moment like, holy cow, I just made $500. What if I did it again? So then my goal the next month was to do the steps to success again. And guess what? I made another $500. And then I just knew how to do the business. Like that, it was that simple. I was like, oh my gosh, I know how to do this. And so I had no clue how to chart though. So I remember every single time I signed up a customer or distributor, I'd call Stephanie and I'd be like, hey, where do I put them? And she would tell me. And then finally, I think it was in January of the next year, she, after doing it a couple times, I just got to the point where I was like, okay, I know what to do. And I didn't have to ask anymore. But it did take me 9 months to promote to executive, you guys. Doesn't matter how slow your start is. It just depends on starting. And it really, for me, was that moment where I just quit shooting myself in the foot and decided to just shoot for it, because playing to not lose is not the same thing as playing to win. So 9 months to executive, 11 months to Ruby, 1 year to Diamond. And when I went Diamond, my husband promoted to Emerald. We weren't married then though, but, and it's so funny because he was so against the business. Like the month I went Diamond, I will never forget, asking Joel for advice. Cause I was like, hey, so Taylor, says this isn't a reliable source of income and that I need to go get a real job. Like, what am I supposed to do? And he's like, just keep working because in 90 days, you're going to be making more money than him. And I was. So, and then I think 5 months later, I promoted to double. And then a few months after that, my husband promoted to double by the end of the year. He promoted to double in December. So really cool. We went from a $400 paycheck in January to $10,000 combined in December, which I thought was really cool for like how quickly your life and your business can change in a year. And then that following year, we went to conference for the very first time. Husband still wasn't on board. And Stephanie said, get as many people from your team to conference as you can, because that is what changes your business. And so I was like, okay. So as a double diamond, I could get, I think I had 8 or 9 people that were able to come with us. And this is the best, like, okay, the 2 best parts about conference. Number 1, after that first night, after you watch the top 100 go across the stage, we do top 150 now, which I love. But I remember being so exhausted after that first night. And I'm like almost asleep. Like, you know, that moment where you're almost asleep and your thoughts are stopping and you're like, sweet. And my husband rolls over and he's like, Jocelyn, I can't sleep. I just want to do this business with you. I want to quit school. Like, I just like, let's do this. And if it wasn't for conference, he never would have been on board. And then the second thing that's really cool is out of the 9 people that came with us to conference, all of them except for 1 promoted to diamond and above in 60 days or less from going to conference. And some of them went as executives and distributors, like insane. And so if you want to know how to help change your team's life, it's getting them to conference, but in turn, oh man, it changes your whole business. I remember watching that top 100 walk across stage thinking, oh my goodness, I'm a double diamond. I want to be in the top 100. It's going to take me all year to maybe get into the top 90 to 100, somewhere in there. And I remember asking Stephanie, okay, how much money do I need to make? And I remember being so overwhelmed when she told me a number to start shooting for. 2 months later, so I went from double diamond in January, triple diamond in February, presidential in March. And then I remember getting a message, I think in May, from Pam saying, by the way, you're the number 60 income earner. And I will never forget when she messaged me that, because I thought it was going to take so freaking long to get into the top 100, let alone like almost the top 50. And so don't count yourself out and don't think that it's not possible. Crazy, crazy things can happen, but it starts with the work that you put in now, because it's some of those people that we were helping promote to executive, to Ruby during this time of year, that we then tried to help get to conference. Those were the people that made that happen. Not that they did the work for us. We obviously put so much work and helped them. So crazy things. And then we went from presidential to ambassador the year after that. And then like, we've had so much fun. We've traveled, we've done all the fun stuff. We had big dogs, and now we have a family. And it's so fun because Taylor gets to do what he wants to do and live his dream. I get to live my dream and be the stay-at-home mom and literally not have to worry about money. And I joined when I was 19 and had no clue what I was doing, you guys. Like, I had no why and no big, huge purpose. And I remember when I first joined struggling with that, because they always said, your why has to make you cry, or you're not going to be good in this business. And I felt like I never had that. And obviously now it's definitely grown and evolved and changed because my life has, but I'm so thankful that I stuck it out, because truly, like, I hope you realize what you have your hands on, because this can completely change the entire trajectory of your family for years.
Oh my gosh, so good. I love everything you said so much, but one thing that stood out to me so much was playing to not lose is not the same thing as playing to win. I thought that was gold. Okay, so you talked about how you were shy when you got started, how you didn't have very many friends, and then how, ultimately it took you 9 months just to go executive. What would your advice be to someone on here who maybe does have a little bit of an established business, to, like how to navigate and lead those people who maybe are just like you, but it's hard for the leader to see that? I know so often we see someone who seemingly isn't really doing much in the beginning and we just think, oh, they don't really want it, but you obviously did. So there just was some things that had to click in your mind. So can you share a little bit about like what that process was for you, and then any advice to someone on here on, how to best lead those people who are in that transition and very much can be the next Jocelyn Yates on their team?
Yeah, it's such a great question, because it really gets you thinking, like, who do I have on my team right now that literally is like, not like what if they're not even a qualified leg, right? And you're like, man, like they could still be my next ambassador. So, I mean, you've got to think, okay, how would I treat them if I knew they were my next ambassador? And I think even like when you're talking to potentials, or even like your brand new distributor, thinking, okay, how would I want to work with them? How would I connect and talk with them if I knew they were my next diamond? It changes, because if if they're your next diamond or your next double or your next ambassador, like you're going to be working closely together. You're going to become good friends, which means that you genuinely need to make sure that you're checking up on them and building that friendship. So, and it's really funny because I actually I'm not super close to my enroller, but we're just like in totally different lives. Like she's got 7 kids and she's so busy and it's just crazy. But if she hadn't always checked up on me and always been there when I needed her, I probably wouldn't have, and she shared the resources with me. I think that was one of the biggest things. But my advice, especially as you're trying to find those diamonds in the rough, is making sure that you're consistent with building those connections with people and never count people out, even if they don't respond. Still just make sure you go to their page, see what's going on in their life, and just check up on them. And I'm going to be totally honest, you never know. I had a lady, she joined on my team on my 2.0 team a couple years ago and didn't really do anything with the business. She ended up like it canceled out, and then she ended up joining this year. She's promoted to Diamond, and literally the month after she went Diamond, like she hasn't responded to me, and that's okay. Like I'm still messaging, I'm still reaching out to her because she still could be my next ambassador. I have no idea, but you've got to make sure that you still are putting forth that effort to show people that they're worth it. I think that's the biggest thing. And then always just having that mindset, how would I treat this person when I'm answering questions for them if I knew they were my next rock star? Because I think sometimes we get stuck in this like, and this is the worst mindset to get, and I know we all get there, but when people reach out to you, and sometimes you know what I'm talking about when you're like, okay, this person's starting to get a little bit annoying with their questions or whatever it is, they start to get on your nerves. Always remind yourself of that. Like, this person could be my next ambassador, and I need to treat them like that and treat them with the respect that they deserve. Because if I don't, then they're probably never going to live up to that potential. And it reminds me, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but it reminds me of advice that I heard when we first got married, where they said, see your spouse as if they were their fullest potential, and they will become that. And it's the same thing with our distributors. If you want them to step into that leadership role, then see them as that and tell them that you see that in them, and then just continue to build that connection with them. Because if they can feel and sense that belief that you have in them, just like Stephanie believed in me. I don't even know what she taught, but I just remember thinking, okay, I'm just going to shoot for it. But if she hadn't poured that belief into me, I probably would not be here.
I love that so much. One of the things that we talk about a lot on our team is how people don't necessarily rise to the level of their potential right away. They will always like rise up to where your expectations are. And so if they know you believe in them and you're transferring that belief into them, you'll see them step into their potential so much faster. So I love that you shared that too, because I think that belief is such a powerful thing. Okay, so another question that we had for you is just, what would you say to someone who thinks it's taking too long? Someone who feels like they've been stuck at a rank for so long, or someone who, maybe is still a distributor, has never promoted, but has been working and just hasn't really had their breakthrough. Like, what would be your advice to them, or what would you say to them?
Oh my gosh, it's so good that you asked this, because I just watched a training from one of my really good friends in this business, Kelly Brown. And she said something in her little training that she did that was so profound. And she said, okay, so if we treated this business like it was a business, like if we just opened up a boutique that we had to like pay this big, huge fee to get the building and then get all the clothes for and all this stuff, if we literally like didn't go and open the doors that day, we would be losing thousands of dollars. And she said, so many of us in this business don't treat this business like an actual business. And especially, with the whole sense of like, when you have a job or whatever, where you're expected to do the tasks from 9 to 5, a lot of us aren't treating this business like that. And she, and it was really cool, just talked about how if you don't have a specific routine and specific time set aside to work your business, that you're always going to be stuck. And it really struck me. And I think that's what the missing link is, because sometimes we just like, oh, I didn't have time to post today, or I didn't have time to follow up. I didn't have time to message. Do you want to say hi? Say hi. Okay. But really, like, if we truly treated this business like a business instead of a side thing, that's when things change. And I think it's the mentality that you have, that it's just a side thing, is what's holding you back. So I think the thing that you need to do to start making that change is you need to set up a schedule. And like, if your life is crazy like mine and a little kid runs the whole world, you've got to get up earlier than that kid so you can get some work done then. And then I get a ton of work done when she's asleep. And then like, my floor is always a mess because I just let her play and do whatever while I'm working. And I think, put it in the perspective. If you were the sole provider, if your husband didn't have a job that paid for the food or whatever, like, or even looking at your husband as an example, like, your kids might cry sometimes when he's not there because he has to go work and pay the bills. But do you think he feels bad? No, because he knows if he doesn't do it, he can't buy the food, right? It's that important. And if you started treating your business like that and actually prioritizing your 6 list every single day with those set times, I think that's where everything changes. It's really just that mindset of quit treating this like a side thing and making it the priority.
I love that so much. It really is so true. The boom that comes when we make it non-negotiable and don't just treat it like, oh, it'd be nice if that happens, but actually treat it like it's a non-negotiable thing to us. Okay, what would one final piece of advice that you would give to anyone on here who maybe hasn't gotten their conference ticket, or who has their conference ticket but hasn't quite gotten on their, their team, they're personally enrolled hard enough about getting theirs? What would be your final piece of advice about the importance of conference and getting there?
So I never would have went from double to presidential in 2 months had I not gotten those people on my team to conference. There's just something almost magical about conference, and I can't even tell you exactly what it is, but there's like, if you ever just wish you could just like shake your team members and just like pour the belief in them that they can do this, or shake them and all of a sudden they're motivated, conference does that. But if you don't go, if your team doesn't go, they don't get that. And I think, you hear so often, oh, go to conference, go to conference, go to conference. And it's for a reason. Like, I mean, literally think about it. If the top 150 income earners are going to conference and sharing their best tips on stage, there's like, you're going to learn something that's going to change your business. And you never know what it's going to be. But if you don't go, you'll never know. Like, what if that one event that you didn't go to would have been the one where somebody said something that took you to Ambassador?
I love that so much. So good. Well, thank you so much, Jocelyn. We so appreciate your time. I know it's like bedtime and dinner time and stuff there for you guys in Utah. So thank you so much for making time for us. We just love you so much and hope that you guys have a great rest of your year too.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brittany.
Bye.